Hey, you want to go to Las Vegas and come back smarter than ever? Well, that's what's going on with the SBE Ennes Workshop. It's now part of the NAB Show. It's part of their broadcast technical program, and it's a 2-day affair on the April 12th and 13th. We got Fred Willard and David Bialik here to talk about what's going on for both TV and radio engineers at the SBE Ennes Workshop. It's next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb at the top of the tower. That one's from Lula, Georgia. Hey, I'm Kirk Harnack. So glad that you've joined us for This Week in Radio Tech. I'm in my usual spot, and that is the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee, where it's a typical February day. Cloudy, the sun's already just about down, and it was kind of chilly today. Maybe the weather will be better somewhere else. Hey, next week, by the way, while I'm thinking of it, next week we're going to be live in Birmingham, Alabama from the Alabama Broadcasters Association Engineering Academy. They're going to teach radio engineering all next week, and we're going to be there on Thursday. So we're going to have some students and teachers there. So it's going to be good. We did a show about that a few weeks ago, and now we're actually going to be there and do the show live from the academy. All right, now let's get into this show. Chris Tarr's not here today. He's busy on another project, but that's okay. We've got David Bialik and Fred Willard with us. So let's say hi, first of all, to David Bialik. David, good to see you, friend.
Hello, Kirk. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. How are you, sir?
Doing great, and looking forward to the upcoming NAB.
Yes, and that's what we're going to talk about. And it's a really couple days of strong teaching, and the topics. You guys have done an outstanding job of picking the topics, and we're going to talk about those topics, not just about the fact that you're teaching them or some other people are teaching some of the topics, but we'll actually talk about the topics ourselves here somewhat, kind of pass around what we know and maybe come to realize that we need to go to school too. Also with us, I'm delighted to bring in Fred Willard. Fred, welcome to the show. Hi.
Great to see you again, Kirk.
Good to see you. And
looking forward to this NAB. Good new direction for SBE.
Well, and I want to ask you about that because Fred, you and maybe David too, but you guys contacted me months ago about being a speaker or joining in with another speaker on your main track coming up. Now, I'll tell you what, let's cover a couple things. The SBE and NAB have joined together to produce a wham bang, whiz bang Ennes Workshop. Give me some details, dates, and the kind of the topic tracks. Who wants to take that question?
I'll take it. Well, April 12th and 13th, we're going to have a 2-day Ennes. That's going to be a workshop on media over IP, and there's also going to be a parallel Ennes for an RF workshop, but Fred and I are putting together the media over IP curriculum, and it's really been an amazing thing to put together. First off, we found out that we didn't have enough time in the day to cover everything we wanted because there is so much that is media over IP. And also, it's a pleasure to work with Fred, who I've worked with for many years, doing sessions with the Audio Engineering Society. And also, Fred and I went to college together even. So we've been friends a long time. So we've been putting this thing together. And yeah, instead of going to class in college, we were dealing with the radio and TV stations at American University.
What else is new? Okay, away from work.
Yeah. Hey, in fact, I didn't do a very good job of introducing you guys. David Bialik has been on this show, I don't know, a dozen or more times, maybe once each year for the past almost 15 years. But David, you have been on the show. You've been affiliated with CBS Radio, with some New York City radio stations, with streaming services at CBS Radio, and you've worked in the television industry. And so your background is pretty broad. You've also put together a lot of the AES broadcast track, which I understand AES is not so much doing anymore. So you're focusing here on this track, on this SBE Ennes Workshop. Have I got that story kind of right? Am I close?
Pretty much. I've been on your show since you were audio only. I was there when you moved over to video.
But not as many people know Fred Willard. And I guess I've met Fred a time or two, but really got familiar with Fred since he contacted me to invite me to be a speaker or a co-speaker on a session. So Fred, you're in the television industry. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and why we should listen to Fred Willard.
Well, I actually started in radio, and I have an audio background. And I'm a real audiophile. I love surround sound and movie theaters and sound reinforcement. But I started in a student radio station in Wharton, Maryland, and that's where I got the broadcast bug in high school, and I got my first class license in high school working on transmitters. But then eventually I got into television, which is just radio with pictures, really. And
that's what
started with Sinclair for a couple of years as a master control director, worked my way through, done every job in television except for sales and management. So,
and Fred has also been the assistant chair of every program that I've done with the Audio Engineering Society for at least the last 10 years.
Okay, yeah, good. Well, you guys have lots of
with, public TV, and 5 years with NASA, a few years with Harris installing transmitters, and Univision now for 22 years. So,
wow,
I've been around a lot.
So
Fred's
you've been at Univision.
If you say "mas problemo," that's Fred.
No problemo.
No, around you say no hay problemo, no hay problemo.
Exactly.
Okay, hey, we're gonna hear from.
You need to learn more Spanish.
We're gonna hear from Nautel right now for just a minute. They're one of our sponsors, and we'll be back to talk specifically about the topics that are going to be taught in this media over IP. And I got to tell you, one of the classes being taught is there a future in media over IP? And I want to hear about that because I think the answer is, well, duh. We're going to find out why that if you're an engineer, you should be putting your efforts into knowing all about this because it is important and it is absolutely your future. Hey, we're brought to you in part by Nautel, and Nautel, their Transmission Talk Tuesday programs are starting back up again. But right now we're going to see a real quick video clip from a typical Transmission Talk Tuesday.
So how do you pack tools and equipment so you can load it and unload it easily? What I finally, after a couple of years, what I ended up doing is buying one of those rolling tool kits. They make them. What I happened to got was from Home Depot. They make every company's got one. I went for the lightest but the most durable, and it's a 3-part box. Is the best I can explain it. It's like on a rack, it looks like a furniture dolly kind of rack. You pull it down like your luggage. So there's a big box at the bottom, then there's a medium-sized box, and then there's a small box on the top. So what I could do is I can sort that so that the bottom box, which has got the wheels and the handle, I fill it up till it's 50 pounds with some of the larger stuff that I need. Then the second box, the same way, and then the top one is typically a lot of smaller things, small tools, connectors, that kind of stuff. And then for my purposes, what I can do is I can take the lower box is 50 pounds. I take the top 2 boxes and I strap them together. Those are 50 pounds. Those come apart. And so then at the airport, then I can check those. And then I can have a third box, which is typically because I'll be gone, in most cases, unless it's just the one here, I'll be gone for at least a week. And so that'll be I'll have my suitcase, which will have some clothes, I put some snacks and food and things like that, and then I fill that up the rest with the 50 pounds with other equipment, test equipment, or tools and things like that. And then, of course, you have carry-on, so I can carry my laptop in another carry-on bag, and that typically sometimes gets heavy, but it's easy because it's a rolling rack.
I was wondering if he's going to put his underwear in one of those. That's Rich Barker, and that's part of the Transmission Talk Tuesday. They got some new Transmission Talk Tuesdays coming up. Finally, Jeff Welton is getting back to work, and the ones that are coming up on February 27th. So that is Tuesday of next week, February 27th. The topic is Nautel at 55. Nautel celebrating 55 years. Jeff Welton will have some surprise guests as they celebrate this milestone. And then on March 12th, you can go ahead and sign up for both of these if you go to nautel.com/webinars and then click on Transmission Talk Tuesday. March 12th is pretty interesting. The rise of contract engineering groups. And, there are several now, maybe even quite a few that are offering engineering services over a wide area. One of our sponsors, Max Connect Group, is doing that kind of thing. And there are others too, like InRush. Paul Stewart is president of Summit Technology Group. And so there's several of them popping up or have been around for a while. Going to be a good show. So go to nautel.com/webinars and click on Transmission Talk Tuesday. Click on the register for whichever one you want and register. It's easy to do. All right. I'm Kirk Harnack in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, along with David Bialik and Fred Willard. Okay. We're talking about this SBE workshop. It's in Las Vegas. It's just before the NAB, so it's convenient to fly in to Las Vegas and get yourself a couple days of really, really good education. You guys have put together an amazing, and I do mean that sincerely, an amazing list of topics and speakers. So, Dave and Fred, if you want to, start cover a few of these, I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd love to just at first mention this one that David mentioned to me about the importance or the future of audio over IP. So maybe who was speaking on that? David, was that? All right, his name was that. No, wasn't Ed Martinez? He's speaking on something else.
Right.
Oh, it's Ross Media. Somebody with Ross Media speaking about
right. That's a keynote.
Yeah, that's our last. That's our last. It kind of wraps everything together, pulls all the ideas together of like it or not. This is where all media is heading. Commercial off the shelf packets. Everything's going to be packets, and we really have to. We have to get used to it and be ready for it. And the sooner more of us know how to manipulate this, the better off we'll be in the industry.
Something very topical that happened today. I think a lot of us are aware that something happened with AT&T today. A lot of connectivity was temporarily lost. I think most people are back in shape now that were disconnected. There's a few. I've heard a few different theories flying around that all seemed reasonably plausible. And this is packets. And so one of the knee-jerk reactions we have is, well, see, I told you packets are a bad idea. Well, packets on a nationwide network that is subject to vulnerability here and there, that might not be something worth relying on all the time. But packets in your own facility where you have control of the equipment just as much as you would have a cart machine or a VTR, you have control over these things. And this technology is really flexible, worthwhile, and worth using, and doesn't, in other words, you need to understand how to keep your stuff working. Fred, maybe you could give us a comment on that and how it applies in your television area, how important packets are for you guys.
Well, not every network is gone completely IP, but like it or not, there's Dante, there's the audio and radio end of the industry has been packetized for 10 or 20 years, as you know, with your company.
Yeah.
And, we're running 3 different troubleshooting sessions, from basic to the next step to specialized tools for keeping your audio and video over IP systems running. So a lot of practical end of this. There'll be a basics and review at the beginning for people to get them up to speed. And then we'll talk about not just the packets themselves, how to monitor them, the SNMP, how to integrate into 2110 video systems, how we're getting away from hardware and into the cloud, but it doesn't matter. It's still packets.
Yeah. You know, David, one thing that over the years I have kind of learned at Telos Alliance, and, you know, it was our friend Mike Dosh who really pressed this point home. When we have our good old legacy systems of analog or even AES EBU digital audio, when we connect one thing to another, we've got the audio. We know nothing about the audio. There's no information that goes along with the audio to tell you about the audio. Okay, AES EBU may tell you the bit, the sampling rate, and if it's stereo or mono or something else. But when you have analog audio coming out of a computer, the computer knows, you know, the name of the song, how long it is, how far you're into it, the artist. It knows all this information. If it's a commercial, it knows, you know, who the sponsor is and how long the commercial is, and even maybe the stop date of the ad, right? But when you put things in audio over IP, you have the opportunity to know a lot more about that content, because the information about the content travels along, or it can travel along in the same packet with the content. And that brings us into the world of troubleshooting this. It used to be we could put a butt set across an analog connection and determine, is the audio there or not? Is the trouble leaving here or not? So I believe Ed Martinez. What's that? Yeah,
you missed the analog troubleshooting. It was so easy.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Sometimes you couldn't be quite sure, am I hearing the trouble here or not? And or you didn't know, especially if RF was creeping in. Oh my goodness. And RF doesn't affect Ethernet very much. So anyway, tell us about Ed Martinez and what he's going to be teaching in a troubleshooting session.
Okay, Ed Martinez of Stream Guys, an incredibly smart guy. I was talking to him and I said, I want you to talk about troubleshooting IP, and also I want people leaving there at least having a beginning primer to using Wireshark and tools like that, because this way, nowadays when you do troubleshooting, you have to follow the packets. And this is exactly what he's going to explain and demonstrate, because as you know, I've been involved in streaming for a long time, and we've had to troubleshoot down from the origination point all the way down to the listener. So this is an important skill that's needed by engineers. A lot of engineers don't know how to use it, and it is really important for when people are using a system like AES67, Livewire, or any of the others. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the others on your show, Kirk. But
sure, of course, yeah. Yeah.
But you have to know how to do packet analysis and follow everything.
Fred, you deal with IP enough. Tell us about your feelings about Ed Martinez teaching us how to use Wireshark, because that's something that is, I know it's really valuable to our troubleshooting guys at Telos Alliance, and I barely know how to use it. I'm not very good with it.
Honestly, we've gotten the experts here together. I'm not an expert, but I know all the people that we've pulled together are really the leaders in the industry all the way across the board. And this session's really about keeping a broadcast or production or post-production facility going. And we're going to touch on streaming, because you have to know about where the packets are going and how to prepare for streaming. But this is basically about keeping a production, television, radio station facility going. And now, what radio stations don't do streaming, and what television stations or companies don't have radio? It's all kind of coming together, whether we like it or not. I'm working on radio again, and I haven't for 30 or 40 years, but it's all coming together. All packets, and that's the way it's going. And these people,
let's face it, in every facility, there's internal streams going back and forth at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to know how to utilize them.
One of these sessions is about the internal streams, the high quality, low loss, low latency. Streaming is used between facilities across campuses within television networks. And the streaming is so good, it looks like you took a video cable and connected it 1,000 miles away with no loss, with no apparent loss. And we're going to have a whole session about that.
One, David, you brought up something a couple minutes ago about the different flavors of audio over IP, and there's Dante, there's AES 67, there's Livewire, there's WheatNet. I guess Ravenna is still a thing, and you're going to have a session at just after 11 o'clock on Friday called "The Various Flavors of AOIP," and you've actually gotten two competing companies, two directors of engineering, to come up and talk about that. One is John Davis from Wheatstone. The other is my colleague, Greg Shea, who's the CTO over at Telos Alliance. And so maybe you could kind of preview what people can learn about, any interoperability, how to use these different standards, no matter which system you go with.
Well, I've either been blessed or cursed that I've worked in both Livewire and WheatNet facilities. And having worked in them, I've had to speak to the support departments. And I found that John Davis, he works for Wheatstone, probably the best asset Wheatstone has, because a product is only as good as its support. And Greg Shea, I've known for many years as well. And I said, okay, I want you guys to talk about this. Let's face it, we're not doing a product competition or anything. We're talking about technology and the implementation. And most companies out there have to work with both companies. And so it's going to be a friendly discussion. It's not going to be a bully session where my system's better than the other. They're going to talk about it. They're going to talk about implementing it. And maybe they'll talk about some of the similarities, because let's face it, they both have a foundation in AES 67.
Mm-hmm. And Saturday, right after lunch, we're going to have the other end of it. One of our local engineers here works with several formats of audio, and he's going to show us what worked, what didn't, how he got the various flavors to talk to each other and work with each other. That's Dave Donaldson from Gray Media. He's literally down the street from here in DC.
Oh, now that's interesting. Yes. Yeah. His is entitled "Report from the Field: Lessons Learned Building IP Islands." Now, he's in the television industry. So, we've been doing AOIP for radio for a long time. I think we kind of have all that pretty well figured out, but TV still has a few growing pains and some interoperability pains, right, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, and including in the communications world, because that's not standardized yet, and you're going to be talking about that in a session too. So, from telephone hybrids to wide area comm systems to small systems, you and one of your colleagues.
Yeah, Martin Deister.
From UK, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he has that lovely British accent, so he sounds very intelligent. He'll tell you he's not that smart, but he sure sounds smart. So, hey,
Kirk, you just said that about one of your superiors throughout the internet.
Hey, Fred Willard is with us here. So is David Bialik. We're talking about the upcoming SBE Ennes Workshop, and it's a very serious 2-day workshop. There's a track for RF and there's a track for media over IP, and we're talking about the media over IP track. And the topics are, they're not just touching on this and touching on that, and none of this is throwaway. This is all really good stuff. Our show is brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics, makers of an amazing array of software and hardware solutions to make radio broadcasting fun and to get more content out of what you're already doing. Let's hear from Broadcast Bionics. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Bionic Studio. The Bionic Studio brings all audience interaction to the fingertips of a production team in radio, TV, and podcast. Our workflow-led system is working 24/7 around the world for small broadcasters and national and international networks. Our telephony module, Bionic Talk Show, allows cost-effective centralization, remote operation, scalability, and resilience across an entire network of stations, but at the same time is used in single-studio self-op environments. Social media curation and activity is now considered a broadcast-critical part of programming. Bionic Social means the studio isn't overwhelmed with a wall of interaction from an ever-growing number of social platforms. We combine SMS, MMS, and email, together with a speech-to-text service for listeners using smart speakers. We enable studio teams to curate, filter, and display all platforms in one place, and post text, images, and video content to multiple platforms in one operation. Effortless collection of video content with Bionic Director has helped position some of the world's most successful stations as leaders in viral content, generating appointments to listen and free marketing via retweets and shares. Bionic Contest enables end-to-end tracking of on-air competitions, live reads, and prizes. These can be on-air contests, automated SMS entry, or online. Anywhere, and Skype TX for Radio brings high-quality audio and video contribution into the studio with ease. No need for dedicated PCs to run different applications. Everything is controlled within the Bionic Studio UI, and incoming connections are visible to users along with all other platforms. Our codec integration enables connection, algorithm configuration, and directory to a wide range of IP and ISDN codecs. The Bionic Studio, a unique suite of products designed to enable your talent to work smarter.
The Bionic Studio from Broadcast Bionics at bionics.co.uk. Of course, we'll have a link in the show notes, and I really appreciate their sponsorship. They make some cool stuff. So thanks to Dan McQuillan. And you know, the one of their latest developments is that virtual rack, and we talk about that every other week or so here about how they help you virtualize your broadcast infrastructure. It's This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. David Bialik is here, and so is Fred Willard. And we're talking about this SBE Ennes Workshop. And, you know, not that any SBE workshop has ever been throwaway. And I want to really point out that the sessions being put together here, these are not dog and pony shows. These are not sales presentations. These are very serious technical discussions and technical educational sessions by the people who really know their stuff. Now, oftentimes, that's people who work in the industry, people who work at manufacturers who are developing and putting to use the technologies. So I'll tell you, and speaking just for myself, Greg Shea, who's the CTO of my employer, TELUS Alliance, man, when you hear this guy talk, you learn a lot of stuff. He'll give you the backstory about how things got developed, and it's always terribly, terribly interesting. So, David and Fred, let's see, what area are we wanting to hit?
Kirk?
Next. Yeah.
Kirk, I want to add on what you said because the way that Fred and I put together the sessions, we're introducing topics and we're giving enough of a flavor that people should be interested. And the true meaning of an engineer, an engineer does not have to know everything, but you have to know where to get your answers. And you also know how to base your questions. And we're hoping that people will leave this wanting to know more, because you're not going to come out of this with a big broadcasting degree, but you might come out and say, hey, I want to learn a little about 2110. Hey, I want to learn a little more about Livewire or something. They'll come out wanting to know more. And that's when we think we've got a success.
Mm-hmm. So let me mention another topic or another session that you mentioned, David, to me earlier today, and that was this one with Andy Butler. Now, it's about IPv4 and IPv6, getting some basics together. And I think, most of us probably know about IPv4. We tend to use that day in, day out in our jobs, although there's still a couple of mysteries to me about how come this works when I do this and how come it doesn't work when I do that. But Andy's going to bring this into, going to explain this in the IPv6 world. And we're going to have to deal with that. It seems like that can's been getting kicked down the road quite a bit, but in many ways, it's coming upon us. So Fred or David, who would like to talk about Andy Butler and his opening session?
Well, the
Andy
first thing is the kickstart. Yeah, go ahead.
Andy and I are old friends, and I told him I wanted him to do this, and he said absolutely. Andy is also a former president of the SBE and former executive director of the SBE, but he's now the director of engineering of PBS. Andy knows his stuff, and the beauty about Andy is he can take the most complicated thing and make it sound simple. So I said, Andy, I want you to discuss this, and he agreed. And if you know Andy, you'll understand what I mean. That he can make anything sound simple.
And we put him first in order. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we put him first so that people that don't have a strong background in IP will get up to speed, and we'll get this program
because this is the
along.
Foundation of media over IP.
Right.
Yeah. And to me, learning about, he's going to cover multicast. So that is a real key thing in media over IP, as opposed to any other thing that we do in IP. We don't use multicast in emails or FTPs or things like that. We even don't use multicast in most streaming stuff, because that, consumer streaming, that's typically 1-to-1. It's typically not multicast. But when we're doing media in the broadcast plant, typically, not always, but typically we're using multicast to get that done. And Andy's going to give us some great insights on that topic. So I'm looking forward to that. You guys have used a word here that I'm not sure I know what it means in your syllabus in the program, and that is the word taxonomy. What is that? And it sounds like something I want to know about because of what coming later on in the sentence. The taxonomy of audio codecs. What's that?
We have J.J. Johnson doing the taxonomy of audio codecs. Now you have to understand J.J. J.J. and Karl-Heinz Brandenburg worked together. JJ was on the AT&T side while Karl-Heinz Brandenburg was on the Fraunhofer side, and they developed the MP3 codec. Okay? So despite popular belief, Telos didn't invent it, Kirk.
No. We were just the first customer. Telos was the first paying customer.
Yeah, so JJ is a wealth of knowledge. Again, he's another longtime friend of mine. I've probably known JJ for around 25 years or 30 years. And he's going to explain what a codec is, all the different flavors of a codec, and really dissect, because there's different types of codecs, whether it's a transport codec or the different types. I'm not qualified to do this talk. JJ is, and you're not going to get lost in his conversation. That's one thing that, of all the speakers we have, I don't think we have anyone where we're going to say, "Oh my God, we're going to get lost and we're going to lose the audience." No, all of these people will be able to keep everybody's attention span. And I can't say enough about JJ, and I can't say enough about all of our speakers. If you don't walk out of our sessions learning something, there's something wrong.
And that's why we brought your colleague, Mr. Deister, in at the beginning, because he's a perfect host to get this thing going.
And
Fred,
Kirk, as you know, anytime we've put stuff together, Fred or I, we have a code that we want discussions of technology and technique, not sales presentations. Sorry to you, the salesman, but my feeling is that we're doing this to spread the knowledge, and we also want to learn something. And I think Fred will agree with me. We don't put together something we don't want to attend.
That's part of the Ennes Foundation. That's part of the Ennes Foundation idea and background. It's strictly a nonprofit division of SBE for education.
And Harold Ennes wrote most of the books for when we were all studying this.
I want to talk a bit about radio engineers moving into television. And so this whole track, media over IP, includes audio and audio only applications, but also video, which probably includes audio applications. And I know we got a few sessions, Fred, about SMPTE 2110 and making things work with SMPTE 2110. Maybe you could talk to me about a couple of these. I noticed there's this. Well, first of all, we start out with John. And is it Mayhot? Mayo?
Mayhot. That's what I was going to talk about next. He's the equivalent of JJ. He's the video equivalent of JJ in video. He worked for Harris, Lucent Technologies, AT&T in building the original video codecs back in the 80s and 90s. There's nobody really that I can think of that's more cognizant of how video encoding and packetization works. He's probably the preeminent guy in the world. And SMPTE 2110 has its subsets like 2110-30 that includes audio. So audio is a part of SMPTE 2110. And a lot of what people are going to be getting into now, even in radio, there are 2110 plants that are radio stations going now into streaming. Many radio stations, a good portion of their output now includes video.
Mm-hmm. So John's going to be introducing us to 2110, that set of standards and its subset. I mean, in the audio world, we always talk about 2110-30, and I think there's been some new additions onto that. So John's going to introduce us to the whole thing, and then talk about some of the subsets, so we can all kind of get on the same page there. But after John talks, and by the way, I just remembered, I believe I have interviewed John, not on TWiRT, but on an SBE webcast. Because I know John and I have talked for about an hour, so I think it was on an SBE webcast that we did that. But then you've got Jim Bean and Nick Kumar from Fox Television and Advanced Systems Group talking about a greenfield 2110 facility, building it out. What does that mean, Fred?
First of all, I want to introduce Jim Bean. Dave, Jim, and I are all class of 84 from American University. He was literally across the hall from me in the dorm. And one day I said, "Hey, we're building this student TV station. You want to come by?" And he said, "Sure, I got nothing to do." And I brought him in, and he's been in television ever since. So I'm guilty of bringing him into TV. Anyhow, he's the chief engineer for Fox DC. And I was the chief engineer here in DC for Univision for 20 years. Now I'm just doing special projects and RF, semi-retired. Anyhow, Jim Bean built a facility from the ground up, just bare walls, and he was able to do it however he wanted, and it was built all IP, 2110, all audio over IP, no analog except maybe to the microphones or speakers themselves.
Yeah.
So he's going to talk about, if you can start from scratch, you don't have any legacy systems, how would you build it? How can you save money? How do you set up the network topology? What do you need? What's the footprint? Where do you have to expand? How do you monitor it? How do you keep it running? So he's going to show how it was actually done. He's going to show pictures of the progression of the building of the facility.
Yeah,
cool.
and Nick Kumar is from Diversified, or was working with Diversified when they did the project. And when we called Jim and I said, "This is where we're going to do what we're going to do and who you're going to be speaking," his first statement was, "Oh my God, I'm right after Mayot." So,
gotcha. Oh, by the way, there's another session right after that one, and it's what a situation that so many television engineers find themselves in, and that's having to live in both worlds, in the world of SDI, like they've had for a couple of decades now, and then 2110. They may have some 2110 installation going on. So Steve Holmes with Leader is going to be talking about day-to-day operation in the hybrid world of these two things as you make a lengthy transition. That should be interesting, too. It's kind of hard to live in two worlds, or it can be.
Well, it pertains to about 95% of the people that are going to be coming to this session, because almost every station has built-in legacy infrastructure, and they are building 2110 extensions, islands. Of course, the idea is to get finally to 2110, but it doesn't make sense to tear out your whole facility. Not many people could do that. So we're going to have to live with even some analog, some digital, some 2110, and there'll even be some progression into the cloud, which are later sessions, which we'll talk about. But
some of us
John's
have to be analog men in a digital world.
Yeah, and he's going to talk about how to use instruments to make measurements, losses, packet losses, how to transcode, how to packetize, kind of what a real, like a sports facility or something, would run into in real life, and how to troubleshoot, find problems. That's basically what that session's about.
Gotcha. Hey, we're talking to David Bialik and Fred Willard on This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. We're talking about the SBE Ennes Workshop. This is actually, you might call it a premier learning event in the broadcast industry for broadcast engineers. I'm going to be there in Las Vegas. I hope you're going to be there too. Hey, honestly, even if you're not going to NAB itself, this is part of NAB, but even if you're not going to the show, if you can't take much time off work, this is really worthwhile to go to for continuing education and broadening horizons, and increasing your own employment opportunities by getting your foot in the door and getting to understand a lot of these different applications of technologies. Our show is brought to you in part by Broadcasters General Store and by one of their amazing manufacturers. You know him and love him. It's Hank Landsberg of Henry Engineering. And Hank does so many things. And you've heard me talk for the last few months. Every 4 weeks I get to talk about Hank Landsberg, and that's about this little product he has called the Back UPS. Once again, Back UPS saved my bacon at one of my transmitter sites because of another failed UPS. They should just call it the UPS failure management. It's what they should call this thing. The Back UPS from Henry Engineering. Here's what's cool about this. This is not a whole facility solution. Obviously, it's one little box, and it's for either a rack or part of a rack. And here's how I think about it. It's got two AC power inputs and one AC power output. Okay, the one power output is on a duplex plug, but it's one power output. And all it does is it smartly switches between the normal UPS input and the shore power, if you will, the un-UPS line input, or maybe it's a different UPS, whatever you want to feed into it. The point is, sometimes you got to service that UPS. Sometimes, if you're like me and most engineers, you've had a UPS failure. And I use this on my equipment that doesn't have two power supplies. So I've got a rack of gear at one of my transmitter sites where we have put in a Back UPS last summer. And I've got a number of automation computers and some other important gear like the EAS gear and things like some Telos X nodes from Axia, things like that only have one power supply. Yeah, I know the X node can be powered off PoE, but I don't have PoE out there. So point is, we got some things that have one power connection, and those things, sure, I could plug them just into the UPS, but what happens when the UPS fails? As it has a couple times now. So you plug it in the Back UPS, and the Back UPS will automatically flip over to shore power, commercial power, when the UPS is not present. And that has super saved our bacon. You can set some parameters on it. It's got different modes, but you can set parameters as far as the delay time when it comes back on, because you don't want the thing there, flipping between these two things. That could be hard on the gear too. So you can put a delay time where it's sure that you have good UPS and then it can flip back to the UPS. Love this little box from Henry Engineering. And I know, you can buy bigger commercial, not commercial, but bigger, more powerful versions of this from the various UPS manufacturers because they know their boxes are going to fail too. So I like the one from Henry. Henry supports the broadcast engineering community. It's right-sized for so many applications. I've got about 4 computers and a couple of lower power devices on mine. It's under 15 amps of draw, and that's the limit on the back UPS. So check it out. Love this thing from Henry Engineering and Broadcasters General Store. You can go to their website at bgs.cc. You can give them a call because they're built for calls. They love to talk to you on the phone. Give them a call. You'll probably get somebody right away. The chances of you getting voicemail are pretty slim because they make sure that a lot of people are ready to answer your call at 352-622-7700. That's 352-622-7700. Thanks a lot, Broadcaster General Store, for sponsoring this week in Radio Tech. Love you guys. Okay. We're here with David Bialik and Fred Willard. We're talking about the SBE Ennes Workshop. Just to be clear, there are 2 simultaneous workshop tracks going on over 2 days. And one of those is about RF. It's called RF101 Bootcamp. And I think people like Carl Lamb are going to be there, Kevin Trueblood, Greg Buchwald, Josh Bone is going to be speaking there. He's one of our sponsors. Then there's this other track that we're talking about, and that's media over IP. And it's perfectly applicable to radio and to television. In fact, some sessions are geared, pretty specifically to one or the other. And we're kind of getting into day 2 here of the Media over IP Essentials program, talking to Fred and David about this. Let's see, what would you like to hit next, David? What's happening on day 2 that you're particularly excited about?
Well, we got Greg Oganowski talking about media streaming basics.
Oh, yeah.
Greg is probably one of the most knowledgeable people there is about streaming, and he's also one of the hardest people you can get to just stay focused on one topic. But he's going to be doing this talk on media streaming basics, and I'm really looking forward to it because the man's a streaming encyclopedia. And then right after that, we have Andrew Osmond talking about production quality streaming because a lot of people don't even know what WebRTC is and how important that is because that's how a lot of stations are doing their point-to-point. What is it? It's their RPU nowadays. It's the
we use it to we run live from several locations in the country, and the quality of the stream is so good with such low latency that you would think that the people that are doing the weather in Houston are literally in DC, but they're not. But the quality is so good you can't tell. So that type of streaming, internal streaming, high quality streaming, low latency, 422, if you're familiar with those subjects, not consumer streaming. In other words, the professional end of streaming that really would only pertain to people in the industry, not consumers. And I did want to mention one more thing, that we're covering a lot of audio here. And we want to say that for video engineers and video facilities, audio is something that is probably not paid attention to as much as it should be. So we have a number of sessions on audio quality, loudness, the streaming. It's real important to know where your audio is going and what you have to do to make it sound good when it goes to the consumer. So we have not just internal, but sessions about what happens to your signal when it gets out of your facility.
Yeah, and there's something else going on the second day that I'm really excited about because I haven't done it much and I really need to learn how to do it better. We're gonna have Javid Butler in to talk about working with fiber optics, and he's actually going to show us how to splice fiber. And I know I haven't done it much. I want to see this. Fred and I have arranged to have him come. He's going to have a special camera there that people can actually see as he does it there. And he really knows his stuff. He just did the fiber optic display at MetLife Stadium, so the guy knows his stuff. So that's going to be really interesting. And to
Have you
go
seen that
with
big
Fred,
sphere? Yeah. At Las Vegas,
and
he was involved with the lighting of that.
Oh, wow.
yeah. And to go back to what Fred was saying about the importance of audio, I'm going to quote our good past friend Chris Tobin, may he rest in peace. He used to always say, uh, "Video without audio is just surveillance." So
Yes. Yeah. True.
Or
and,
as Tomlinson Holman says, it's 55% of the signal. That's more than half.
And it's audio is important because remember years ago, Kirk, I know you remember, we would listen to the radio. We didn't care if there was static or anything. If we were hearing the Mystery Theater, we would, as long as it was clear. If television was on, we didn't care if it was snowy. We only cared about the audio and hearing it. And guess what? Mm-hmm. The audience will still stay if the audio is good and the picture isn't. But if the picture is good and the audio isn't, people are going to turn it off.
They turn it off. And a lot of people don't understand the nuance of human hearing and distortion. People just literally tune messages out if it's distorted. They won't listen. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about that. And video engineers need to know that. And
as does every married man knows about ignoring the message.
Right. As Jim Starzinski from NBC would say, if your audio is not up to par in your television station, your audience is not going to be there.
Yeah, it's annoying to have to work hard to understand something. Whereas if it's easy to understand, then your brain doesn't have to work as hard to understand what's going on. And improper use of audio codecs can contribute to that, certainly, especially when you start out with bad audio and then you try to code bad audio, you end up with some people would say a real dog pile. Later on the second day, I know so much has been said about cloud production, and the company I work for, we can put products in the cloud, and certainly people are using products in the cloud. There is certainly expense to that, but Noor Hassan and Jonathan Solomon with Amazon Web Services, and actually both with Amazon Web Services, going to be talking about media over IP in the cloud and some of the best ways to get that done. I want to point out that sometimes this there are places where it's almost essential to get something done. Getting it done in the cloud is a great way to do it, but it's not a panacea. There's places where you just need to do it yourself, do it in your own data center, or do it in a nearby rented data center or something like that. But it's going to be interesting to find out what they have to say about what are the benefits and advantages, and how do you use just this other tool. It's a big tool, but how do you use this other tool in the toolbox? What do you gentlemen know about that session coming up?
It's not hardware. That's all I know. I'm going to learn as much as you're going to. We don't use it in our company. We're looking at it, but we're very conservative. We haven't gotten into it. But many of our competitors have been doing it for years. Discovery, I believe, their whole master control has been in the cloud for several years now. So it's accepted technology, and if it works for your company financially, it's something you need to know. More and more companies are going toward it.
I'm amazed by the low latency involved in it, and that it works. And I have used it, and I'm hoping to learn a little more about it because it's where the industry is going. We're not going to see radio and television stations with large libraries anymore. We're not going to see master controls anymore. I think the pandemic basically mandated from now on as many jobs that can be done remotely will be done remotely, and that's the opening of the cloud.
Mm-hmm. It does also allow you to do more, like if you're doing sports, it allows you to do more venues because you don't have to set up switchers, and all you need are cameras, and your switcher is basically wherever in the world you want it to be. And I've seen it in operation, and there's no latency. It's just as if you were punch the button in the truck, but it's happening in the cloud. And
Yeah.
along with PTP and the throughput and the quality of service of the streams, it's almost, as far as the consumer is concerned, they would never know. So I'm going to learn something on this too.
Yeah. A couple of events come to mind back, what was it, a year ago or so, when the Queen of England passed away. The coverage of her funeral, one of the networks was doing all the media production in the cloud. And the only reason I know about that is because Telos Alliance was tapped to provide intercom services for that, and those were cloud-based. Plus, then when they had the coronation of the king in England, that was also, at least by one network, handled through cloud production. There's some car racing. I don't know if I'm supposed to say which one, but there's some car racing, and if you might have the right formula, you might guess which one it is. And they do a lot of their production either in the cloud, or they use some cloud services to get that done. And it brought to mind that one of the benefits of the cloud that I'm sure that these guys from AWS will bring up is, as something you alluded to, Fred, is that you can afford more stuff, more production facility, if you rent it in the cloud for some period of time, rather than own it. Right? Hey, a friend of mine, he recently sold it, but had a company with like 8 television trucks here in the Nashville area. There's a lot of money tied up in those television trucks. So being able to move some of that production into something that you can rent and just pay for when you use it, that's an interesting benefit for people who may not be producing stuff all the time. And then there's small networks. I think we're about to do a story about a chess TV channel that they handle their production in the cloud. And one more, and I don't mean to hog the whole segment here, but one more thing, like we're producing this show right now. This is not, we're using a little bit of cloud facility, but for the most part, we're using equipment that is at the office where our producer, Suncast, is, and he's got equipment there handling it. But on the rare occasion where I'm tapped to produce the show myself, either Suncast isn't available, or typically we're doing it at an odd time, or we need to have more people on the show. I use a cloud-based service when I produce the show, and so it's there, there's a place for both, I guess, is my point. And it's important that we as engineers know all about what's available from the cloud, so that when we can recommend that to our employer, or if we're told to deal with it, we have a much better chance of dealing with it if we know all about it. Agreed?
There is one thing I'd like to bring up on this. It is not an expensive program. This is $259 for 2 full days, and it includes breakfast and lunch both days. So we're basically breaking even, if you know what things cost in Las Vegas. So we're really bringing this as a service to engineers that, if they're not sure they'd want to do it or not, we're trying to make it as affordable as we can. And a lot of companies, if you check into it, like I know my own company, and I know of a few others, they do help with education. You'll get a certificate at the end of this to show that you attended, and some companies will assist with education. So do look into that.
And if you're on your own, it is tax deductible.
Yeah. We're going to provide the link to register for this. It is it's under the auspices of the NAB overall, even though SBE is producing the Ennes Workshop. So you register at NAB Show, and I'll get a link for that in the show notes so you can find it more easily. And like Fred said, it's $259, and that includes a total of 4 meals. So you're saving that. We're going to save $100 right there.
It also gets you an exhibits only pass, and if you're interested in full conference in all of the sessions, it gives you a $150 discount off of that. But it is possible to register just for Ennes at $259, and you do not have to be full conference like you would have been in past. So it's actually much cheaper. It's much cheaper than it ever has been.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. It's literally only $259 if you just want to do Ennes.
And where else in person can you meet both Kirk Harnack and Fred Willard in person?
That and $20 and I'll buy you a cup of coffee. So how about that? It's this week in radio.
Kirk,
Yeah.
There is something that Martin Dykstra is going to be doing the keynote on Friday morning. And Bob Orban will be doing a keynote on Saturday morning. And so you're going to be hearing from a lot of people that are really knowledgeable, and you're going to learn something. You're not going to walk out of of this and say, "Why was I here?" You're going to say, "Wow."
And we have a lot of breaks, so you're going to be able to pull these people aside and bring your high level questions to them. And these people know what they're doing. Believe me, these are the industry experts, the world industry experts in media and broadcast. We're very lucky to have this group of people.
We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we got one more quick word about Gary and Cindy Cavell and a session that they're doing, which honestly, that could, what you learn from that easily could result in you making back the cost of going many times over. And we'll give you more on that in just a minute. I'm Kirk Harnack. It's This Week in Radio Tech. And I got a couple things I want to tell you about. Chris Tarr isn't here, but I am. And I want to tell you about this thing that has, I know I talk about things that save my bacon, right? I'm saving a lot of bacon, if you can understand that. This is the USB analog audio gizmo from Angry Audio. And let me show you, if you're an engineer, you can figure this out. It has a USB connection right here, all right? And then it has, they look like Ethernet, but they're not. They're Studio Hub connections. So you just plug Studio Hub cables in there. This is a sound card. But this is the sound card that you want if you're doing professional audio. Yes, there's plenty of sound cards out there. And yes, they're okay if you want to plug a mic into one and go into your laptop. But if you need pro quality audio with an extremely low noise floor, a big headroom, plenty of headroom, professional balanced inputs and outputs, that's what this gives you. This connects to your computer and gives you fully balanced inputs and outputs. And I got to tell you, the noise floor is just way down there because so many times, and it's happened to me over and over again, you get buzz or hum or whine in your audio from an external USB sound card, or even from the connections on the computer itself, because these things are not built all that professionally, unless you buy one from Angry Audio, where it is designed to be quiet and to be distortion free and to just work absolutely perfectly. So here at my lab, I actually was having trouble with an input and output on a computer that I was going to feed into an Axia network via analog, because that was just the easy way to do it at the moment. And the cheapo USB interface that I had, it was no, it was no good. I thought, wait a minute. I've got the perfect thing. I've got this. So I brought it out, plugged it in. I mean, in a minute and a half later, I had perfect audio. So this and other devices from Angry Audio will absolutely get the job done in broadcast. By the way, this thing's heavy. I mean, not that makes a big difference, but it's well built. It's heavy. I don't know what Catfish is designed with the grounding in here. He explained it to me one day, and I could probably, repeat it for about 5 minutes, and then I, pretty well forgot it. But there's a lot of thought that goes into making this trouble-free and noise-free. And so that's what you're getting when you buy this. You're getting the thought and the design that has gone into it. Check it out at the Angry Audio website, angryaudio.com. By the way, if you need any accessories from Studio Hub, they have those too. Oh, and by the way, this comes with the cables you need. It comes with $50 worth of cables, the audio Gazinta and Gazauta, and also the USB cable, high quality USB cable. So it comes with what you need. Thanks a lot, Angry Audio, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Our other sponsor of this break is Max Connect Wireless. And Suncast, we got anything you want to show from Max Connect? Oh yeah, the U192. We were talking about this just this week at Telos Alliance and with some other people. If you want to use one of these audio processors for FM that runs on a PC, or maybe even coming soon to a theater near you, runs as a Docker container, you're going to want to be able to get that audio out of the computer and get it into the MPX format. Well, that's a little tricky to do. Yes, you can use some of just a few sound cards that will sample at 192 kilohertz and give you a somewhat reasonable output. But I tell you what, they're a little finicky. And if there's a capacitor in the way, that's no good. And also they're usually coming out of an RCA connector, and that just doesn't feel right. The U192 is under the direction of Max Connect. It was designed by Angry Audio, and it gives you a beautiful multiplex analog output. And this is still the most common way to hook up an FM exciter. And so it comes out of your PC running Stereo Tool or Omnia SST or Breakaway One, comes out of that and USB into this box, the U192, and then gives you a beautiful, clean MPX output. And it is so amazing. It also has the AES EBU at 192 kilohertz sampling. It's got that output as well, if your exciter can take that. This is a great box. It is its power supply is internal, and it's well made. You pick it up, you feel it, you think, oh, well, this is not a cheap plastic box. This is well made. Look at the screws on it. If you're watching this on video, it is well shielded for RF environments. So you ought to check this thing out. From Max Connect Wireless, the Max Connect Broadcast U192 MPX sound card. There are more and more stations getting this on the air because sometimes, hey, doing FM processing on a PC or maybe in Linux is the right thing to do, and it works well. Hey, we're just got another couple of minutes here left, and I want to ask David Bialik and Fred Willard about this last session with Cindy Cavell and Gary Cavell. Tell me about this and how it can really make you a better engineer with a lot more stature. What's going on here?
That's
well, at the end of the day, yeah, it's the management track. If you can't explain what you're doing to management and explain why what you're doing is important, how's it going to help your career?
If you can't defend why, it's your
and why do I need to spend this money?
Broadcast engineers are fighting for their existence, and management has to understand why they need. You have to explain why they need you. It shouldn't be that you need them, but why they need you.
So the topic is how to talk like a manager. And I'm sorry, I looked right over his name. I don't know why. In addition to Gary and Cindy Cavell, who've been guests on this show, they're just terrific people and high-level engineers. But also Kevin Trueblood is going to be on the show on that topic as well. He's the Associate General Manager for Technology and Operations at WGCU at Florida Gulf Coast University. So these are three people who are very well versed in speaking to owners and managers and being part of the management team. And so as an engineer, hey, a lot of us got into engineering because, well, maybe we just weren't that interested in talking to people, right? That we were more interested in talking to machines, cart machines especially. Love those things. But we need to be able to speak like a member of the management team and show why our contributions were not just a money pit. We can be a source of income, a source of saving money, and a real source of strategic planning going forward in a broadcast facility. Fred, have I got that kind of close to the right description?
Yeah, return on investment. Yes, we can put this remote together for you, and the ratings will go up, this type of thing. You need to be able to not only justify your existence, but show how engineering can be part of the management team and the ability to grow the station or grow the facility.
Gotcha. Gotcha. David, any last comment from you about this? We'll have a link in the show notes to register, but people can also go to nabshow.com and find it there, or the SBE website. Look for the Ennes Workshop. Do what I did, just Google SBE NAB 2024, and you'll get some links there too.
Well, someone was asking me today why media over IP is important, and I said to them, this is the wave of the future. In the old days, we'd go to Radio Shack, get our parts, and fix things. Guess what? There's no Radio Shack anymore. Where are we going to get our cables? We're going to go into Staples. They already have the RJ45s on them, and we have to work with that. And that should say a lot right there.
Good deal. All right. It's the SBE Ennes Workshop at the NAB coming up in April. Get registered for it, $259, and it includes 4 meals. And we'll have a link in the show notes. Hey, Fred Willard, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate you, and especially you putting this together along with David Bialik. Thank you for being with us too, David. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
I look forward to you.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you too, and look forward to doing a little speaking there myself. Hey, Suncast, thank you for producing today's show. Another great job. I appreciate you very much. And we will see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.